G'day everyone, welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark, and here we are Monday morning here in Cancun in Mexico. And boy, what a weekend of rugby that was, and everyone's still talking about it, which is a great thing for the sport of rugby across the world. May we have a great round 2 coming up this weekend. Before we get there and we start talking about that, I wanted to go back and select my best 23 from the weekend that just went past in round 1. So what I've done is I've put a fantasy team together. See what you think about it. Let me know in the comments whether you agree or disagree on certain positions, or does somebody else stick out for you? And let me know what you think about it. So we'll start off in the back line, and for me there's only one man that can be in the 15 jersey, and that's Will Jordan. Had another great game for the All Blacks. I thought, of course, put Cortez Ratimer away for a great try after he did a break, set it up himself, and if he's not scoring tries for the All Blacks, Will Jordan, he's setting them up for his teammates. And had another great game in the black jersey. Then the two wingers I would have in my team, Kurtley Ardenser. I think he produces every game. He scored another try this weekend, even though it was in a losing team. He's absolutely phenomenal on the wing. He's a great finisher, Ardenser. And I saw the best of him again this weekend in that early onslaught from the Springboks. And on the other wing for me, well, it's the flying kangaroo, Max Jorgensen, who got in again and scored a brilliant try in the weekend for the Wallabies, but he's consistently good in this Wallabies team, Max Jorgensen, and I had to have him in my team. Then moving into the midfield, the two that I picked that stood out for me in the weekend, Joseph Su'a-Ali. Don't forget, this guy's only played a handful of games. Yeah, of course he can improve his tackling. He's come from rugby league, but he can definitely do things on attack, and he's a big guy, and I thought he had an exceptional game with that intercept again in the weekend. He nearly got a second. And I thought he's just getting better and better every game. And from the other number 13s this weekend, he stood out for me by a long way. And then in the number 12 jersey, I would put Andre Esterhuizen. Scored a try for the Springboks. He was very good in open play as well at different times throughout that game. Despite the Springboks losing, I'm not looking at having players in my team that were just part of a winning combination. I thought Esterhuizen did a good job. He showed up a number of times in that Springboks number 12 throughout that game, so that's why I would put him in my team. Moving on to number 10, and for me it's got to be Thomas Albanos, one of the best 10s in world rugby, I believe, at the moment. And out of all the 10s that played in the weekend, he had the best game, the best kicking game, the best running game, scored a great try for the Argentinian Los Pumas against the All Blacks, of course, and he's just absolutely calm under pressure, this guy. If you watch the game, he saved the Pumas a couple of times when he had clearing kicks deep in the red zone of the Pumas, and he got the Pumas away from their lines. So not only was he good on attack, good at taking penalties, good at taking conversions, scoring a try, he was also very good in defence. Thomas Albanos definitely in my team at number 10. And then at number 9, I'm going to put Nick White. Despite all the chatter before the game against the Springboks, Nick White turned up and played brilliantly well, I thought, for the Wallabies on Saturday night at Ellis Park. He was great with his kicking. He always gets lots of good territory with his kicks, and he kept his mouth closed for the game and just focused on playing good quality rugby and being the man that Australia needed him to be. So Nick White gets in my fantasy team from round 1 of this year's Rugby Championship. So there you go. Those are my backs that would start the game in my fantasy team. Now let's have a look at the forwards, and we'll go into the back row first of all, and let's see the back 3 that I would pick. Well, number 8, it's got to be Ardie Savea for me. He's absolutely brilliant around the field for the All Blacks, and the only reason I put him in the 8 jersey in this team is because I've got 2 Lucies that deserve to be there and would absolutely add some spice to this particular team. And one of them is Pablo Matera. I thought he played brilliantly against the All Blacks. He's a wily old dog. He knows how to get around the field. He had some big turnovers for the Pumas in a team that was beaten yet again, but he played outstandingly well. And then on the other side, I would have Sia Kolisi. Sia, I think, was probably playing one of the best games I've seen him play for a long time until he got taken off. And I think that was a little bit of a mistake from Rassie taking him off so early. But I would have Sia in my team from the weekend. Then moving on to the locks in my team, I would have Fabian Holland from New Zealand, who keeps putting in 80 minutes every week, doing an outstanding job winning ball for the All Blacks, getting around the field and just keeping that tight 5 together, doing his role. And for a young guy that's come into this All Blacks team this year, he's just doing an absolutely outstanding job. I can't fault him. So he's got to be in my team. Then alongside him, I'm going to put Eben Etzebeth. I thought he played outstanding in that Springbok team. He was one of the only players I thought that can hold their head up high after that game from the Springboks. He was a man about the field in the first half. He was doing a lot of runs. He was chasing down kicks. He was showing that he's still a young man at heart. And I just thought he played exceptionally well. So I'm putting Eben Etzebeth in my fantasy team for round 1 of this year's Rugby Championship. Okay, moving on to the front row, and normally it would be dictated by a bunch of South Africans, but not today. No, I didn't see them playing that well in the weekend in the front row. In fact, I'm still going to pick Oxenchair because I think he's one of the best props in the world, and I think he did have a pretty good game for the Springboks. And then I'm going to put Cody Taylor in as hooker. 99th cap for the All Blacks. If he gets chosen this week, he'll be out for his 100th cap. Another good game from Cody Taylor, and really made sure that the All Black forward pack did their job in the weekend against the Pumas. And then the last prop I'd have in my fantasy team this week would be Taniela Tupou from the Australian Wallabies. I thought he did a really good job against the Springboks, and another player who just went in there, did their job, didn't give away penalties, and didn't have a bad day at all at the office. So Taniela Tupou gets in there for props. So there you go, that's my starting 15. Let me know in the comments what you think of it so far. Who would you change around, and tell me why. Okay, let's go to the bench now and talk about who I would bring on in my fantasy team off the bench, looking at the forwards first of all. And the front row I would bring on would be Fletcher Newell from the All Blacks. I thought he played very well in the weekend for the All Blacks. He's normally coming off the bench and does a good job. Then I'd have Angus Bell from Australia. I like Angus Bell off the bench. He always adds some spice to the game. He's a great running hooker that can get around the field, scores tries, but he gets through breaks. He gave that great pass to Harry Wilson that set up that try in that game in the weekend. So Angus Bell would be in for me. And the other front row I have in would be Wilco Lowe. So those are the three that I would bring off the bench to take over the front row of the forwards. Okay, and then the other two forwards coming off the bench for me is, first of all, Juan Martin Gonzalez from the Pumas. Thought he had a really good game against the All Blacks. Came on as an injury replacement first of all, but then he came back on the game off the bench later on in the game. Watch for him next weekend in Buenos Aires. He's going to have a big game. I think a number of these Pumas are going to have a much better game because they've had this run out against the All Blacks in the first game. But Juan Martin Gonzalez, he gets my nod in my fantasy team off the bench. And my last forward to come off the bench is going to be old Quagga Smith, because I don't know how you can leave Quagga Smith out from coming off the bench. He can cover a number of positions, but he's very, very good at getting in there and disrupting the ball once some players have got tired on the field. So there you go. Those are my forwards that I would have coming off the bench. Now I would have. And first of all, in terms of halfback, it's got to be Tate McDermott for me. He's been outstanding in the last few Wallabies games. Against the British Lions, when he came on, he made an impact. Again in the weekend, he made an impact. Remember that 40-metre run he did up through the middle of the Springboks, which led eventually to the next Wallaby try? Absolutely brilliant. And he's been playing out on the wing as well, Tate McDermott, when Dylan Peach got injured in the game against the British and Irish Lions. So Tate McDermott would definitely be in this team for me, coming off the bench. And then next up for me off the bench would be Canan Moodie from the Springboks. I know he was on a losing team again this weekend, but I've got so much time for this young guy. I think he's absolutely brilliant, and he can really have an impact when he comes off the bench. We just didn't see it this weekend for the Springboks. And then the last player I would have coming off the bench in my 23 fantasy team would be Tom Wright from Australia. Can't leave the guy out. If there was an injury in that back three to start off with, Tom Wright can come in and cover that position, no problem at all. And we saw what he did with that match-winning try against the Springboks in the weekend, but he's also been playing extremely well against the British and Irish Lions before the Wallabies got to South Africa. So there you go. There's my fantasy team from round 1 of this year's Rugby Championship. Let me know in the comments, as I know you will, which players you didn't like that I chose and which players you would have in there as a replacement. I'd like to hear that. Now, throughout this week, I'm going to be back with more content talking about the upcoming games on this weekend. We're going to be in the capital of Argentina, of course, in Buenos Aires for the All Blacks against the Pumas for their second game in this series after the All Blacks won the first one. And in the second game, we're going to see in Cape Town between the Springboks and the Wallabies, and what a game that is likely to be. There's going to be a lot of revenge coming from the Springboks for sure in that particular game. So let's see what kind of team Joe Schmidt is able to put out on the field, given all the injuries and the tiredness that must be starting to come into that squad now. We'll have to wait and see until he gives us an update this week. I'm going to be following it all right here on Inside Rugby with Mark, so don't go away. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you've liked this video today, give it a thumbs up, share it with all your rugby mates, and I'll see you again very soon from the beautiful, hot and sweaty Cancun in Mexico. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, keep enjoying your rugby, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.